And I'm back. We are going to do an actual 0 to 60 test on all three of the Excursions today. Now, I downloaded an app that's going to be a lot more accurate than me counting, so we'll see how it goes. It runs off GPS. I know GPS isn't the most accurate, but we're going to run it off that because this one has slightly different tires. So let me get to the spot and I'm going to go ahead and do it. All right, this is the 2000 Ford Excursion V10 0 to 60. All right, I'm not gonna load up the converter. I'm not gonna, hold the brake and give it a little gas or anything like that. So the turbo ones are probably gonna be at a slight disadvantage, but we'll see how it goes. So this is 0 to 60. See what it says. It says the 0 to 60 was 16.1 seconds right there. So that's the V10 Excursion. So I'm gonna go get the 7.3 Excursion and the 6-liter Excursion, and we're gonna see which one's the best. And then, got a surprise for you. We are going to do a tow test. So we can actually get some real world results and you guys can actually see how these really do, because I know a lot of folks have been saying, how do these things tow? And a lot of people can give their own account. So I'm gonna strap like 6,500 pounds behind these things and go up this little grade and show you guys how they compare. So this is the V10 Excursion, 16.1 seconds. I'm gonna take a screenshot of that so we have it for later, and I'll see you guys in a second. All right, we are in the 02 7.3 liter diesel Excursion. Now, keep in mind, I did the other, the hand calculated 0 to 60 test going downhill, and this one's going up. I'm doing this one because it more simulates what it's gonna be doing if it has any load. So you put bigger tires on it, you tow a trailer, it's adding load to the vehicle. So I'm kind of out here in the sticks and it's fairly mountainous, so there's really no way to do a flat 0 to 60, unfortunately. I know that like legitimate 0 to 60s are done on flat terrain and the conditions are controlled, but I mean the road's dry, it is an uphill right here, so I mean it's kind of the best I can get right now. I really don't want to do it on the highway. I know, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm in Mexico, so it's okay to do it on the highway or whatever else, people say, but just kidding. Whatever, I'm obeying the speed limit, so I don't care. So we'll wait for this last car to go, and as you can see, we are at 0, and 3, 2, 1. Let's see what we did. This says that the 7.3 did 16.7, so it's saying it's half a second slower than the V10, which could very well be. I mean, the gas motors, are quick off the line, and they do pretty good. I mean, the V10's no slouch, but like I said, these are as stock as I can get them. This one has absolutely nothing done to it, so that's kind of what we're going after. I wanted something that was as stock as possible for all of them. The V10 has a muffler and the 601 has a K&N air intake. That's it. So anyway, we're at 16.7, so I'm going to screenshot it and we're going to go grab the 6-liter. Okay, last but not least, the 2005 Excursion with the 6-liter diesel. Now, out of all three of them, this one has the most horsepower and the most torque. So, we'll see what it does. And this is the exact same place I tested the other two, so just to make it fair. 3, 2, 1. All right, there you have it. This one did the 0 to 60 in 12.2 seconds. So significantly faster than the V10 or the 7.3. I mean, that's over 4 seconds quicker. Like I said, the 6 liters they're just great engines. I mean, you gotta, yeah, when you buy one, you gotta bulletproof it and do all that other stuff if you're gonna do any, you know, aftermarket modifications to it, really. But they're just awesome engines. It's really unfortunate that they got stuck with having the cat on them and the EGR cooler and whatnot, because I mean, if those issues have been taken care of, the things just, they'll live, they'll take care of you, they'll get good mileage. I mean, yeah, sorry to sound biased. I mean, I've had all of them. I have a 6.7 now. I have this 6 liter. I have the 7.3, but I don't like how people kind of poo on these engines so much. I mean, yeah, you have quite a bit of initial investment to get them kind of done, but now that so many people make different combinations of cylinder heads and you know, you have different companies that make studs and whatnot, there's really nothing stopping people from getting one anymore and you know, studying it and doing the other stuff that you need to, because it's been proven like what recipes of parts will get these things taken care of. So there you have it. That's the 0 to 60 using this app. It runs on GPS. Like I said, it's not the most accurate, but it's closer than me counting while I'm trying to maintain control of the vehicle. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start strapping the trailer to these things, and we'll see what we get after that. Okay, just gonna show you guys. Here's the setup. Now this is tied to the V10 one right now, but that's a 98 Mercury Mountaineer. The trailer, I'm told, is about 1,700 pounds. So fortunately I don't have a scale so I can weigh it, but between the two, I'm guessing it's about between 6 and 6,500. So we're gonna go ahead and see how these guys tow. We are now towing with the V10 Excursion. Gonna go up the same hill we did the 0 to 60 test on with all of them. Now you can hear that the engine's working a little more, obviously, because there's weight behind it, but it's still not doing bad. Now you can definitely tell the weight's back there. I brought the weight on the trailer as far forward as I could to prevent sway and wiggle waggle, which these things like to do if you don't have the weight distributed properly. But then again, pretty much any other bumper pole likes to do that. So I'm just cruising along, doing the speed limit. Now I'm going to do the same thing, pull over right up here and do the 0 to 60 test. Wait for these trucks to go by. Okay, let's see if make sure it stops. All right, 3, 2, 1. That's all she's got. That was 36.4 seconds. Let me screenshot it. 36.4 for the gas V10, which isn't terrible. Now, if this thing with the lift that's on it, if I was gonna go bigger tires than what's on here, I'd probably gear to 410 or 430s, but not bad for a gas V10. you know, naturally aspirated, completely stock, no headers, no nothing. So it's not a terrible ride. I mean, it's super comfortable. I mean, they use these V10s, like I said earlier, they use them in motorhomes and a lot of work chassis. So they're workhorses. I mean, you probably aren't going to win any races with them, but they'll just go, 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 go. And out of the three, these ones require the least maintenance and the least expensive maintenance. So kind of in conclusion, I mean, if you're looking for an excursion to drive around town, yeah, the V10 would probably do you real good, because the diesels need to be driven and warmed up and, you know, operated at operating temperature for a while, like going down the highway. But the V10's not a bad combination. I'm gonna do a rating on these things, you know, at some point towards the end of the video, and I'm gonna do a basically just kind of do a 1 to 3 grade and just kind of see how they all stacked up. But I mean, if you need a daily driver, you're around town, that, you know, you're not too concerned about gas mileage, V10 would do you good. If you don't have a whole lot of access to diesel where you normally go, V10 would do you good. So I have no complaints about this guy. There's a butt for every seat, so I would definitely recommend one of these things. I have no qualms about it. So it's kind of where we're at on the V10. I just wanted to do this so you guys could see. Now I'm gonna speed back up, losing speed a little bit, so I'll get back up to 55 or a little quicker. I'm out here in Colorado, so which is nice, because there's no trailer specific speed limit like there is in California or some of the other states where you have to go 55 maximum or whatnot. Here you can go as quick as the speed limit is for normal cars pulling a trailer or not. So that's where we're at. But when you're towing with any of these, it's best to have the overdrive off here. And basically what it does is it keeps the transmission from going into overdrive, so it won't build heat and it can stay in its RPM range better. But yeah, it's always nice to do, just to make sure that thing, because if you go into overdrive, it's hard to build RPMs and you know, maintain your speed unless you're just like wringing this thing out. So they all have it, the overdrive off, so it's a good idea to use if you're towing. But yeah, the other nice thing about it is when you turn the overdrive off, it remaps the gears in the transmission. Essentially, it'll let it shift a little bit later, and since it's not going into overdrive when you're going downhill, it won't be hanging out in overdrive, so it'll actually help you slow down. Now, the diesels, the 7.3 has a wastegated type turbo, and the 6-liter has a VGT type turbo. So the diesels you can actually buy an aftermarket exhaust brake for, and what that'll do is when you turn it on, it'll restrict exhaust flow leaving the engine. So that in turn will help slow the truck down. The big semis have it. They call it a Jake brake, and you hear it with the pop, 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 pop popping when they're going downhill. But the 6-liter, since it has a variable geometry turbo, can if you were to get tuning for it, you can actually use the VGT as an exhaust brake. So fortunately the gas engines didn't offer that, but you can always do bigger pads and bigger rotors to help. So that's pretty much a summary of the V10, guys. So I'm going to do the 6-liter, or I'm sorry, the 7.3 next. Now we're rolling in the 7.3. Doing our thing. Now this thing, let's see what she does. I don't know. I know the V10 beat it in the 0 to 60, but I'm curious to see how V10 beat it in the 0 to 60 unloaded. But I'm curious to see how this thing does with load. The extra torque should come into play and carry it through, but I'm not sure. This is the one that I'm going to be doing all my projects on. I think the next, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next to it, but at some point I got to get underneath it and check the Y pipes to make sure there's not an exhaust leak, because if there is, you'll lose significant amount of power too. But if these are the original Y pipes, they don't have a bellows on them, and they can end up cracking. They have a braided looking assembly on them, and they can end up cracking, and you can lose quite a bit of power, because lost exhaust is exhaust that isn't going through the turbine housing on the turbo to create boost for you on the other side. So we're doing 50. It opens up to 55 up here, but I'm gonna pull over. Same spot, same thing. All right, going in 3, 2, 1. on, old girl, you got this. Almost 60. 34.3. Yeah, it's, let me screenshot it. Let's see how we did. 34. So the 36 was the V10 and 34. So it's 2 seconds quicker than the V10, which isn't bad, but it's, I still feel it's down on power, but it's also 100% completely stock. Like, this has absolutely nothing done to it. So it's gonna get quite a few mods, and we'll be able to see the difference, because I'll do 0 to 60s on it using the exact same place. It's not like this piece of highway's going anywhere or something, but you know, it's a little hard to tell unless you're in the truck. But when you do the 0 to 60 tests using the same app in the same conditions, you can kind of get a you know, feel for how it is with the repeatability and the conditions being more or less the same. Yeah, it's once you're up to speed, it's pulling great. I'm gonna slow down a little bit and romp on it and see how it basically simulate like a passing condition. But let me get down to 55 or 50. All right, let's go. Pretending we're passing somebody. Yeah, it's going. It wants to go, so I can't fault it for that. It's accelerating pretty steadily now. It's almost like it just didn't like getting moving. One of the biggest things you can do on these 7.3 ones, same with the V10, is the transmission cooler for the 4R100 transmissions that's in the V10 and the 7.3 is literally about yay big. It's like I think it's 7-8 inches tall, and it's about the width of the radiator. But the one on the 6.0 is huge. It's about, I got to put a tape on it, but if I recall, it's about 2 feet tall and as wide as the radiator. So it's huge. It's a huge difference in cooling, and it's, if I recall, I haven't done one in a while, it's almost a bolt-on. You buy one from Mishimoto or something, they'll give you the brackets, and they'll give you the pieces of line you need and whatnot, and it hugely improves the cooling on these things, so that you don't end up frying your trans, because that was one of the Achilles heels on these things, was they get too hot if you're working them hard. So it's kind of a toss-up. I mean, the 6 liter's obviously done the best in all of the tests, like performance-wise and stuff, but you know, longevity, I mean, the 7, that would, for me, that puts a win in the 7.3 column as far as longevity, because you don't really have to do a whole lot to these things. As long as you maintain the oil and keep up on the coolant, and make sure your fuel's clean, they just run forever. Now the transmission, on the other hand, is, you know, questionable. Most people I know that have 7.3s have gone through at least one transmission, and they've had it built, you know, even a stage 1 or a stock plus build with some better internals and a better cooler, it'll live for a lot longer. The big issue was the converter. The converter just wasn't very strong, and when your converter has transmission fluid moving through it, in order to let it be a liquid clutch, and if your converter takes a dump, the clutches in there are quite abrasive, and so what'll happen is if your converter takes a dump, it'll puke all the clutch material into the rest of the transmission and trash it. Not to mention, it'll cause it to run just incredibly hot, and it'll toast your clutches in the trans and burn the fluid and everything else, and so it's a big mess. So if you're, you know, gonna get one of these and do you know, repeated heavy hauling, or you're gonna, you know, hop it up and, you know, put more fuel to it, more power, it's definitely recommended at the minimum to change the valve body in the transmission and do a upgraded torque converter. And then you can do tuning on these things too, just like you can the 6 liter, and the majority of the 7.3s did not come with a catalytic converter. There were some that did, but I have yet to see one in person. They were very few and far between. So nice thing is you know, you can get exhaust and other engine components, and they shouldn't be able to give you a hard time about it, because these things didn't come with emissions equipment to begin with. They didn't have an EGR valve, most didn't have a cat, you know. So if you're basically, the only thing on this exhaust is the muffler, so there's not really, you can't really get in any trouble for taking it off, which is why these 7.3s have gotten so desirable. But yeah, that's the 7.3 portion. I mean, she pulled well. It did a little bit better than the V10, which as it should have. But you know, the if I would have loaded up the converter or stood on the brake and brought the RPMs up to like 2,000 RPMs, you know, so that the I was getting some air going through the turbo and lighting the motor off it, I guarantee you it would have 7.3 would have annihilated the V10 anymore, even more than already happened. But it's not a fair comparison. I know different people do 0 to 60 differently, but I'm doing it from a stop, and I'm going uphill, so my numbers are going to be a little higher. But if I do all my 0 to 60s in the same place under the same conditions, then you can see the tangible difference as we improve performance and whatnot. So yeah, that's a 7.3. I'm going to take my foot off the gas and see if it helps me, see if it downshifts and helps me stop. I have the tow haul on, so it doesn't really feel like it's doing it, but the I know that you can do tuning and it'll do it, and then you can buy, there's a couple companies that make exhaust brakes for this thing, like I was telling you earlier, and yeah, there's all sorts of good things you can do to these 7.3s, and they just keep going. Like I said, this thing has 297,000 miles on it and runs great. Like you saw, starts up when it's cold, doesn't run strange, doesn't overheat. Does have a bit of an oil leak, which is on top, which I think is coming from the exhaust back pressure valve on the turbo. But anyway, I'll quit yapping. But there's your results for the 7.3. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch the trailers, and then we'll do the 6-liter. All right, we are hooked up to the 6-liter. Gonna do the same test. As you can see, the back squatted pretty bad. It was a little less noticeable on the lifted V10, but if you were gonna haul heavy often, I would definitely recommend getting some airbags or some stronger springs in the back. So let's get the show on the road. We're towing with the 6-liter. She likes it. The speed limit here is only 35, and then up here it'll be 55, so I can give it a little. All right, speed up. I mean, it's tacking 2,500 and it just shifted. I mean, I'm not towing super heavy, but it's significant and it has no problem with it. These things are just meant to pull with the diesel engine. So I'm gonna do the same thing, pull over at my spot right up here, and let all the cars go by. All right, they cleared. Let's go. 0 to 60, baby. That's all the way down. Thing could really benefit from an exhaust. It's all restricted. And 60. Let's see what we did. 27.4. So that is not bad. Slow down and look. Now the V10 was 36.4 in the same test, and this was 27.4, so it's 9 whole seconds quicker with the 6-liter diesel. That's significant. Now if you're gonna use your Excursion to pull a lot, like if you're gonna be going to the desert or to the river or to the lake and you're gonna pull a boat or a camper or something, diesel is definitely something to consider. If you got to go up a lot of mountain passes or whatnot, just the power and torque of the diesel can't be, you know, dismissed. The V10 gas motor is a great engine, but if you have, you know, mountain areas, curvy hills or something, I would definitely look into either of the diesels. The 6-liter being the most powerful one, but with tuning and intake and exhaust and stuff, any of them can be significantly more powerful. But yeah, 6 liter is a great combo. I know I talk about it a lot, but I got a lot of, you know, I like these engines. They're good engines. A lot of people don't, but I do. Once they're taken care of, but they just go and they'll pull. The diesels love to work. So if you have one and you're, you know, if you want a diesel but your commute's only like 2 miles each way, it might not be a good idea unless you take it out on the weekends and blast on it a little bit just to make sure the turbo's exercising and everything else. So like I said, the 6-liter, this one I know for sure. I'm not 100% sure about the 7.3 when you take it in a tow haul, because this one's in tow haul as you can see, but I know that when you let off the gas on this one when you're in tow haul, the transmission will actually start downshifting and help slow you down. So when you're just cruising on the flat, you actually got to stay in the gas a little more just to make sure that the trans doesn't think you're decelerating and tries to slow you down, which is a great feature if you're towing. But if you're you know, just kind of cruising along, you got to give it maybe like 5% throttle or whatever, so it doesn't think that you're in decel mode. But yeah, is things just cruising along. I'm at 2,500 RPMs at 60, and I mean, these are little tiny tires, so if I went bigger tires, the RPMs would drop. But I think I'm also in 4. I don't think I'm in 5 yet, and I know I'm not in overdrive because I turned the overdrive off essentially. So I mean, there you have it. The you know, pulling heavy, pulling often, I would definitely look at the looking at the diesels. And if it's just kind of, you know, pulling a camping trailer or loading it down or whatnot, V10's a great option too. Now I know some people are going to say, oh, I tow heavy with my V10 all the time. That's cool, you know, you can do that, but just the engine's working hard all the time, and you just, if you're going up a grade and you need to pass or whatnot, I mean, it's not as advantageous to, you know, have the gas motor as it is with the diesel if you are going to run into situations like that you can foresee. So I still got to go home and compile all the data, like I said, and give my 1 to 3 rating for the different categories and whatnot. But I'm actually going to flip around right here, so I'll start applying the brake and it should downshift. Yeah, see, it went into a 3rd, now it's in 2nd, so it's significantly helping me, which is really cool, because otherwise you're kind of fighting it, doing, you know, just letting the brakes do all the work. Now you can get, like I said, you can get bigger brakes, you can get Power Stop or somebody else, you can get the upgraded rotors and the upgraded pads and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, having an engine / exhaust brake is never a bad thing. So yeah, I'm just gonna turn around and go back home, and short of compiling the data and whatnot, that's kind of it. You know, I'll obviously summarize it and whatnot, but I hope people found this useful. I mean, it wasn't easy, it was time consuming. I just, you know, have to drive all over town and whatnot, but I really don't mind it. I like trying to give real world data and real world examples versus just putting everything on paper and, you know, taking a lot of people's word for it. But that's where we're at. Yeah, let's go over the data and we'll see where we fall. Welcome back, everybody. Today is the last day of the V10 versus 7.3 versus 6-liter Ultimate Excursion Comparison. You guys have seen me kind of give an overview of the engines. You've seen me give an overview of the interior, and then just kind of doing like a nice, you know, cruise around town a little bit, and then doing the like seat of the pants 0 to 60, and then the actual 0 to 60, you know, using the app, doing it unloaded and loaded, and you kind of see, you know, what had happened, you know, just with that. But I actually compiled the data, and I came up with this sheet. Now, this is kind of how I'm going to grade it. Now, on this scale, it's 1 to 3, 3 being the best, 1 being the worst. So what I got here is I have the V10 and the 7.3 and the 6-liter. So what I got is, for economy, the V10 is going to be the worst for fuel economy, just because it's a V10 and they're not known for mileage, they're known for doing work. So then the 7.3 is the best, because between the 7.3 and the 6-liter, I've always seen and known the 7.3 to get the best mileage. Now, cost to operate. Now, the V10 is the best on here. Now, that's not talking about fuel economy, because we already covered it in the other column. cost to operate is basically like, it includes maintenance and you know, anticipated repairs and whatnot. So the V10's the best, then the 7.3, then the 6 liter. 6 liter being the worst because, you know, if head gaskets fail or EGR cooler fails, or you got to replace your oil cooler, that's going to be a lot more expensive than getting inserts in the head on a V10, or, you know, just doing oil changes. Everything on a diesel is more expensive to do as far as repair, maintenance, and whatnot. And then the 7.3 is right in the middle, because 7.3 is reliable, but if you frag a high pressure pump or an injector or something, they're still expensive. So that's where I'm at there. 0 to 60 unloaded. The 7.3 was the slowest at 16.7, followed by the V10 at 16.1, and the 6 liter at 12.2. Then the 0 to 60 loaded. V10 was the slowest at 36.4, followed by the 7.3 at 34.3, and the 6 liter at 27.4. 6 liter did phenomenal in these tests. The common issues, V10 being the best, because the really only things that happens with the V10 is it'll pop the spark plugs out of the head occasionally, and, you know, depending on the circumstances, it might blow a head gasket at some point. But the V10s they're fairly problem free. I mean, they'll break exhaust studs and whatnot, but they're not known for super catastrophic failures like the other one, the 6 liter is. Then the 7.3, it comes in second, and it's a rock solid platform. Most people don't have any issues with them and can go hundreds of thousands of miles without a problem. And then the 6 liter came in at the bottom because of the head gasket issues and the torque to yield head bolts and the EGR cooler failure and the oil coolers plugging. But unfortunately, if the 6 liter didn't have any of the emissions crap on it, it would probably have been one of the most reliable engines. Just it's the extra emission stuff that can cause it to fail prematurely. You get a cracked EGR cooler, it fills the motor with water, or, you know, people are trying to run a hot tune and the cat's still on there, so the exhaust temperature gets too high. So anyway, performance. The V10 came in at the bottom despite it winning the 0 to 60 unloaded over the 7.3. That's just the V10. It's a great engine, but it'll pull great. It's just not as easily fixed up. It's not as easily tuned, and your return on investment as far as power wise is a lot better on the diesel engines, because you spend, you know, a significant amount of money, but you get a ton of power from it. I mean, the V10, you do intake and exhaust and a tune, but other than that, you got to do a supercharger, a cams, or some other stuff if you want to get stupid power out of it. So that's why I put it at the bottom, followed by the 7.3, which can also have has super good performance potential. But the 6 liter came in at the top because they're incredibly fast and powerful when you put some work into them. So my final score was the V10 came in at the bottom, followed by the 7.3, followed by the 6 liter. Now, this is my scoring. I tried to pick as many criteria as I felt would be relevant to what people are kind of overviewing when they're looking for an Excursion or a Super Duty for that matter. But that's kind of what I came up with. I really appreciate you guys following the channel, liking the channel. This has kind of been a work in progress. I wanted to do it last year, but with moving across the country and trying to find a job and getting settled in our new house and whatnot, the cards weren't falling into place. So I really enjoy doing this. I like doing videos to help educate people, to help people learn, and I like doing real world comparisons versus just sitting there and just either talking about it or just reading stuff off of a paper. So try to be helpful. I hope you guys can find this video useful. I know that the Excursions they're the most badass SUV ever made, hands down. They just are. There's nothing that comes close to them. So, and I know that they're getting harder to find and the prices are going up, so you want to make sure you make the most educated decision when you're buying one. So I hope this video can help for that. If you like the content, please subscribe. Tell people if you think they'd be interested in it. This takes a lot of my personal time. It obviously took money to get the Excursions, and it's something that I enjoy doing, but I just hope other people enjoy it and will follow along with me, because I got a whole lot of projects and a whole lot of other things going on with these Excursions, the blue 7.3 one in particular, because it's an interesting build, and I'm gonna focus on diesel and performance and that kind of stuff just because I want to build content that people are gonna like and be able to engage with and just, you know, enjoy if they're gonna spend their time watching it. So if you like it, subscribe, and yeah, I really appreciate your support and hope to hear from you guys soon, and see you on the next one. Have a good one.